This is a working capital problem. Working capital, as you may know, it refers to the current assets used in production. That, of course, would be things like cash, accounts receivable, and inventory. The first question here asks how much working capital must it finance if it produces 1,500 batteries a day? Well, from the question, we can see that each battery costs $6. So if it makes 1,500 a day, that's 6 times 1,500, that's $9,000 per day for batteries. Good. But we realize that it gets credit for raw materials from its supplier. So if you look at the timeline again, you will begin to see how we graph working capital and cash conversion cycle. So it takes 22 days to make a battery, but the supplier gives 30 days credit. So our ABC has saleable products 8 days before he has to pay his supplier. But of course, he gives a lot of credit to his purchasers. According to the problem here, he gives his customers 40 days credit. So he starts to sell on day 22, but he collects on day 62. So, but part of that, 8 days of that, is financed by his supplier because he's still on credit for the first 8 days that he's selling, just not collecting. And so we need to figure out how many days, as the question says, how much working capital must he finance? So he spends $9,000 a day making batteries, and he takes 40 days to collect. And so as we see the problem set out here, 1,500 batteries a day at $6 each, so he must finance 32 days worth of working capital, because here we are and we see that the total process from he takes the raw material until he actually collects for the finished goods is 62 days, as set out here. But 30 of those days are financed by his supplier. So he's responsible only for the other 32 days. And so that is where this comes from. And that is where we get the working capital he must finance to be this. This per day times 32 days. The second question says, okay, let us say that his supplier extends more credit to him and gives him 35 days of credit, means that he would finance 5 days less of working capital because his supplier is financing 5 days more. And so we'd have 35 around here. And so we must note what the question is saying. It's not asking us how much he must now finance as working capital. He must says how much less working capital he has to finance. So this is it, because this 1,500 times $6 per day times 5 days less, because his supplier is giving him 5 days longer to pay out of the same 62. So it means he has to finance 5 days less. So instead of 32, he now finances 27 days. But the question isn't asking what is the new working capital, but how much days less working capital. 5 days less times this per day gives us the answer. Thank you. At the same time, perhaps I should just mention a couple other things because they don't need working out. I see in question 4, firm A had no credit losses while firm B had 1% of its receivables uncollectible. Should B fire its credit manager and hire A's? We don't know. We don't even know if A offered credit. Perhaps they didn't. We don't even know if they're in the same industry. there's just too much that we didn't know to be able to answer that question. Thank you.